Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome. This is Karen Nowicki, CEO and President for Phoenix Business RadioX, and clearly we are not in the studio today. We are live in Scottsdale for the SciTech Institute STEM and Innovation Summit, and we are having a blast. It's almost the end of the day, and I'm going to go collapse in bed when I get home. I've been having these wonderful little mini interviews, conversations with professionals and folks who are really leading the path as it relates to our industries in science, tech, engineering, math, and manufacturing. And so with me for this little segment, we have Christian and Carl, and I did not have my sheets in front of me, so I'm going to just let you two introduce yourselves. If you don't mind, Christian, starting off with us, who you are, full name, your role, and then the company you represent.
So my name is Christian Chavez. I'm an ASU student. I study biochemistry, and I founded a company called Common Science Publications. What we do is interpret scholarly articles, scientific research papers, and then simplify them in such a way that anyone without a scientific background would be able to understand.
Okay, so earlier today, Dr. Andrew Maynard and I were doing a breakout session, 11:30, in the main room over here, and the title of our breakout was called Pardon My Science. And we were talking about just that. How do we have this conversation about science so that the general or the common layperson can understand?
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but in my whole career as a student at ASU, and I would imagine that's the same place for any other student, there hasn't been one mention as to how science should be communicated to someone without that type of background. And then if you look at these scholarly articles, like these scientific research papers, they're so dense in terms of jargon. But it's like the most legitimate source of information that you can consume in terms of science. It's so difficult to, even to someone, I don't want to say such as myself, because, I'm still a student. It was still even difficult, but, you think, like, how could someone who didn't or couldn't even go to college possibly be able to fathom this type of work, even though it's like the most legitimate type of information that you could take in.
And we need to know about it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you help us bridge that gap.
Yes, that's the intent. Yeah.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Great. And with us as well is Carl. If you will tell us who you are, your role, and the organization or company that you represent.
Yeah. First of all, that's awesome stuff.
Isn't that incredible?
No, for real. That's a tough act to follow. But my name is Carl Cardenas. I'm an architecture manager at State Farm. So what I'm responsible is for our public cloud platform from an architecture standpoint, but also with our developer evangelism within that platform. So for us, STEM is incredibly important because as we're modernizing and leveraging these new technologies to improve our policyholders' life, we need people that are able to consume these new technologies and understand how to operate them and apply them to a business problem to create original solutions. So yes, STEM is incredibly important to State Farm.
And how did State Farm get involved? Do you know, have you guys been involved in the SciTech Institute for a while now?
Yeah, State Farm's history actually is very rich when it comes to contributing back to the community, not only just in STEM, but even before STEM was a big deal. So we're almost a 100-year-old company, and our headquarters is in Bloomington, Illinois. So back even like in the 70s and 80s, State Farm would contribute back to Illinois State and teach the students in the computer science program. Not just that university, but other universities. Fast forward to today's world, we have major hubs in Phoenix, Dallas, and Atlanta, and in every of those hubs, including our headquarters in Bloomington, we have a STEM program where we reach out to the community and share our knowledge and education and host events to get them up to speed on learning and, cultivating that passion for science, because we need that in the workforce later on.
And how long have you been with State Farm?
I've been with State Farm for 5 years now.
And growing up, let's take it, since we're kind of at a summit and a conference that involves education of all levels, I'm curious about, at what point did you know that you wanted to do what it is that you're doing professionally? Were you young? Did a thunk on the head?
So for me, that's pretty easy. So my dad's always been into computers. So when I was a little kid, probably 7 years old, he gave me my own computer. And I used to play computer games on it. So that kind of got me started. But what really sparked it is when I forgot what I did. I think I broke a window. So as a punishment, my dad went ahead and disabled the hard drive from the BIOS setting, meaning that I couldn't access it. So when you booted it up, it said no hard drive found. So I asked my dad, what's this? He's like, that's your punishment. You can start playing again if you can figure out how to fix it. So I spent probably about a week and a half. It took me to figure out. But that challenge is what created the spark in me to get started with computers.
That's brilliant. I love that. And Christian, how about you? How did you know your career path well into your early years, or did it kind of just come later?
It came later. I started working in the lab, and one of my very first assignments was to read a scientific research paper, and it was in my field. It was relevant to my field. So I thought, okay, I should know this like the back of my hand. So I started reading it, and lo and behold, I didn't know anything. So come to find out that it just took practice, like 2 or 3 weeks. But at that point, when I initially started reading it, that's what I thought to myself is, partially the scientific community expects the general community to just quote unquote do the research when it comes to like big issues like climate change. But when I read that paper, I thought, well, how is it that the community is able to do the research if they won't even be able to understand the research? So that's when it kind of just hit me, and I thought, like, okay, this is important. This is something I should do. And I started talking to professors, and, maybe one in every 20 or 15 disagreed with me, but, that's just a difference in opinions, and it's something that I feel very passionate about, and it's like, that's when I started doing it. And that was like about a year and a half ago. Yeah.
I'm deeply appreciative because I am a very simple person. Mm-hmm. I'm not academically smart. I was a third grade teacher for years, and I've got a 12-year-old at home now, and he's working on 7th, 8th grade math as a 6th grader, and it's out of my league. Mm-hmm. That's why I always joke with him, but it's quite serious. I only taught up to 3rd grade because that's the bandwidth I had for math and science. And so when I'm curious about something, when I was younger, I just would go to read, or I'd go to listen to something, or ask somebody questions. And if it was over my head, I was done. I was no longer interested.
Yeah, and even if we can't practice it, which is reasonable, because say for me, example, I'm not a carpenter. I don't know how to lay brick, but I understand the importance behind it. And that's what I'm trying to convey is like, even if we can't practice science, there's no reason why we can't sit down and have a discussion about it and understand it in such a way that would enable us as citizens to, be able to vote responsibly for like candidates that would support these type of things. So that's my my end goal essentially.
Love it. Carl, when you were growing up, how coveted was education as far as traditional education? I love that your dad gave you this project and said, hey, here's your consequence. Go fix this and you can start playing on the computer again. But did you grow up in an environment, in a family, in a community that education was important, or was that something that was just true to your heart?
Education has always been extremely important in my family. My dad, he had to drop out of school at 7th grade. So he grew up in Colombia just to take care of the farm and stuff like that. So he's always been a lifelong learner and had to learn on his own. He passed that on to me, to always be a continuous learner, to always be hungry to learn and improve yourself. My dad's an electrical engineer today, all because he spent time at libraries and learning on his own while babysitting and whatnot. So yes, for him to instill that discipline in me probably meant the life to him. And then for me to be in a country where I could attend college and not have to go through what he did, I think that means a lot to them. So yeah, long story short, education has always been very, very big in my family.
Christian, how about you?
Yeah, same. My parents crossed over illegally, and that's something that they made sure we knew, was like, we didn't just take that risk just so that you can have some labor-intensive job like we did. We wanted to uplift you guys, so that's a risk that we took. And when I was younger, of course, I didn't fully understand or appreciate that, but, seeing them how they are now is, like, very humbling, and it's something that I strive for, and I think it's something that if I ever do have the privilege of having children, it's something that I want to indoctrinate with them as well.
And you realize that during graduation, like they're tearing up, and you're like, why are you tearing up? I'm just walking. Yeah. But it's just such a big moment for them.
And then from the parent perspective, now that I have two that have graduated not only from high school but college, to just that sense of pride in that opportunity is immense, incredible. So the summit, we're close to the end of the day today. What has been one of the greatest takeaways for either of you or both of you?
I am glad to see that there is so many people that are involved with this type of stuff, because if I go out through those doors, there's not much of this that I'm going to see, to be honest. And it's just, it's motivating to see other people working towards the same thing, which is either STEM education or, getting more people involved within STEM. And, I'm very happy to see that. I don't get to come to these, conferences very often. And I didn't know that this was actually going to be a thing till I was, invited to be a guest on the show. So thank you for that.
Well, our pleasure, and thank you for being an innovator. And I'm glad that you didn't listen to those naysayers, and you're continuing to build this company.
I appreciate that.
And helping people like me better understand science and all the other things that we need to know about beyond, our little world that we live in. And Carl, what's been the greatest takeaway for you today?
Yeah, for sure. Also, please keep doing what you're doing, Christian. That's awesome.
Thank you, Carl.
That's what I came here for people like Christian, that are sharing their knowledge back and continuing to educate. I wish we had stuff like this when I was younger, and I realized how old I just sounded by saying that. But we didn't have these opportunities in my local community, and this is great because it instills the mindset that you all got to be a continuous learner. It just doesn't end when you're done with school. And if we can teach people that at a young age, then we will be better off in society as a whole, because even as an adult and in all organizations, we see that there's still the challenge of reskilling and keeping up with technology. But if you have that mindset from a young age, you're going to have a whole lot of easier time. So for me, it's more about just, preparing the workforce for the potential of an internship, but it's for us as a society to just get better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, great note to end on. Thank you both for spending your afternoon with us for a few minutes, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.